Hello and welcome to Kankakee Podcast, where we talk about the people and places of Kankakee County. I'm Jake LaMore, and one of the best parts of having this job is just getting to meet all kinds of different people from different places of the county. And sometimes you just meet people that you just really hit it off with, and you just really enjoy having conversations with them. And one of those people is sitting down with us today, and that is Nikki Moore from Little Me Studio. She's also a big, thank you, Brian. She's also a big fan of the podcast as well, which is another reason why I'm excited to finally have you here. You have been one of the people that I've been very grateful to connect with, since the kind of the early stages of the podcast. I knew of Little Me Studio before the podcast when I was working in radio, but I didn't really get to know you until the Kankakee Podcast days. Yeah. And you and I always have great conversations every time I see you, and I truly appreciate that. So I've just... through all those conversations, it just led to, okay, you need to be on the podcast. We need to talk and record this conversation.
I literally cannot even understand why, but
wow, stop. You're too humble.
No,
you're too humble.
I am baffled, truly.
Well, you just have so many stories to tell, from just even Little Me Studio to your own personal life. You just have so many great stories to tell, and we're going to definitely dive into some of those today. And I'm very thankful that you agreed to do this, so thank you for that.
I thank you for asking me to do it. I, again, can't figure out why, but I'm here and nervous. Third outfit, we've had that conversation.
I love the third outfit, though. Yeah, it's great. I'm sure the other two
jackets. We were on a vibe. Yeah,
yes, we were. I feel like some of the other times we've met, I've seen you in a jean jacket, and I'm usually wearing a jean jacket. So,
truth be told, I had something else on, and it just wasn't me.
That looks like you.
And this is really, I'm, kind of casual and comfy.
Yeah, we don't. You don't have to spruce up for us. You could have shown up in your PJs, and that would have been just as good too.
I actually had that thought this morning. I'm like, I wouldn't have actually done it, but I'm like, that'd be fun. The PJs podcast with Jake, right?
Yeah.
That could be a whole nother thing. Beanbag chairs.
We've got one. You just would have needed to bring another one.
I have one.
Okay.
I have one, or my son has one.
Okay. Well, that'll be for when you come back.
I mean,
because I'm sure we're not going to get in all of the stories you have to tell. I'm just trying to think of where to start with Nikki Moore, because Nikki is a woman of many talents and, as I said, many stories. You have lived in the county pretty much all your life.
My whole life.
Yeah. And is it Mantino? I know you have Mantino roots, but I can't remember.
Mantino. Yeah. Actually, so that's a question. Did you ever find out from your mom if she was my favorite babysitter?
No, I keep forgetting to ask her about that.
Yeah, Dawn Weber.
Yeah, Dawn Weber's my mom.
From Mantino, Weber Printing. She was my favorite babysitter when I was a little girl.
Gosh, that is so funny. No, I don't know why I keep forgetting to ask her.
7 ways to Jake LaMore.
No, it's true.
This is another one.
It's very true. Every time it's a text conversation, in-person conversation, what it is, we always find another connection.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's one of them. And it's just so wild that you're like, oh, you know what? I just remember, I think, is your mom Dawn? She was my babysitter.
Yeah. I don't know how we figured that. I don't know how we figured that out.
I don't know either.
But yeah.
Because your maiden name, again, is
Helgeson.
Mm-hmm. And so you're born and raised in Mantino. Helgesons are. And I don't know where you want to start with this, but your adoption story is wild. I feel like And I don't know if you want to start with that story or if you're comfortable sharing that story.
I was born in Kankakee County. Yeah.
Because when one of the last times we met and you shared that story with me, my jaw just dropped. I could not believe the story.
I was adopted, and I think I was 3 days old when my parents adopted me, and amazing parents. Like, I couldn't have asked for anybody better. But when I was in the hospital having my now almost 19-year-old son. So I was in the hospital.
Oh, I thought it was your first child. It wasn't your first child?
No, I was in the hospital having my 19-year-old son. So I was in the hospital, had the baby, and I'm holding him, looking at the baby, tired. And the nurse that was taking care of Jace, my son, said, after everybody had cleared the room, doctor and other nurses had left, she said, "You look so familiar. Who is your mother?" And I said, "Oh, my mom is Rita Helgeson." I said, "But I'm adopted, so I don't look anything like her, right?" She said, "I think I know your mom," or something like that. I can't remember how it came to be, but I said, "I'm adopted. I don't really look anything like her." And she said, "Oh, I must be thinking of somebody else." And then she, took care of Jace, and she left the room. And then at some point later, she comes back and she said something to the effect of, "Okay, so you're going to think I'm crazy, but I think I know who your biological mother is." And I'm like, pumped full of hormones. And I'm like, okay.
You just gave birth.
I'm like looking at my baby that I worked so hard on. So I'm like, oh, okay. And she said, asked me where I was born. And I said, here in Kankakee, and who my doctor was. And I told her. And she said, I'm pretty sure that I know who your biological mother is. And she said, because of HIPAA, I would need to get your permission to kind of reach out to her and see if everything connects.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, okay. And, I really wasn't one of those people that was always had it in my mind that I wanted to know who my biological parents were.
Because it was a closed adoption.
It was.
I'm assuming.
Yeah. And I never really, it wasn't something that was constantly on my mind, right? Or even infrequently on my mind. I just didn't think about it at all. And
I'm sure you feel very blessed to have always had that feeling, because I feel like you don't hear that from a lot of adopted people. Yeah. They usually feel like there's a hole.
Incomplete.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not to say I didn't feel incomplete in some way, but I think overall it just wasn't something that I was always like, when I turn 18, I'm going to find my parents. It wasn't something that I really thought of. And so when she asked me, and I'm like, okay, and I honestly 100% did not think it was going to turn out to anything. But sure enough, here she comes, back again. And she said, it is your biological mom,
Yeah.
And yeah.
So that nurse comes back and says, "Hey, do you want to talk? Do you want to meet your mom?" Or how did that?
Basically, yeah.
Yeah. How did that work?
So she had reached out to her, and all of the information, was the same, my date of birth and where I was born and all that stuff. And honestly, I do look very much like her. And she, I think, called me. She wanted to come to the hospital, to meet me. And I said, well, no. But we ended up making arrangements to meet at Applebee's, a week later.
Great American.
Yeah, Applebee's. And I had a full biological brother, an older brother, who was there too. And
you had never met?
I had never met him. My dad, strangely enough, worked with my biological mother's husband. Not my biological father, but my biological. I know it's very like you need like
a tree,
arrows,
a chart,
and yeah. But my dad worked with my biological mother's husband for a very long time and knew him, but didn't know that was, because that connection was there.
Yeah, because remind me, in a closed adoption, you don't know who's on the other side, right? At all? Like your adoptive parents didn't know.
No, they didn't know. It's a closed adoption. My birth certificate says, Randy and Rita Helgeson. Yeah, there's no information on there about who my biological parents are. Yeah. So that's how it happened. And I met my biological mother and my biological brother. And then at some point I met my biological father, who looks a little bit like Kenny Rogers.
I remember you talking
with
about
he's got long flowing, kind of white, gray hair,
And he lived out west or something,
he
right?
lives, I think, he lives in Arizona, I think. And he is an aerial photographer. So he jumps out and I guess famous in that world of aerial photography. So he jumps out of airplanes.
That's where you get your artistic side.
I mean,
some of it.
It's not where I get my fear of heights and flying, apparently.
No.
But yeah, it's, interesting to say the least. But sadly, it didn't work out, the relationship. I don't know how much to say about that. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings.
No. You don't have to get into all that if you don't want to. But I still thought it was just baffling the way you found out.
The way it happened. Yeah. Because I'm glad, even though it didn't have a successful,
connection,
right,
long-lasting connection.
A long-lasting connection. I am grateful for having had the opportunity to meet her and to meet my biological brother. Because I do think that I did wonder, every now and again. Somebody said I looked like, at one point when I was in like high school, somebody said, you look just like this lady on General Hospital. And I'm like, is she my mom? Kind of thing.
Is my biological mother famous?
Because I had this, kind of big curly fro of red hair, right? It was perms, in the 80s.
Yep.
And so
my mom had one. Even my dad had one in the 80s.
My parents had them too.
Everyone did.
It was, interesting. Those are interesting photos to look at. But yeah. So I'm grateful for having had the opportunity to, meet her, but not regretful of it at all. Yeah. But it's a weird story.
It is, yeah. And thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. It's very personal, so I appreciate that.
Thank you. Yeah.
So, moving on from that, did you become a nurse pretty quickly after finishing high school, college? Or did that come later on? Because you spent quite a bit of your life in healthcare.
I think I was 23 when I started working. Yeah, I always worked for doctors. And so I started working for a doctor, my first doctor, couldn't remember my name.
How long did he ever remember your name?
No.
Wow.
And what's funny is that, so I was the only nurse in the office. There were only 3 of us. And so it's not like there was a large staff. But the funny thing is he would go, when he needed me, he would he would yell, from another exam room.
So your name was,
And I'm like,
At least call me
I'm
nurse.
on my
Did he say
way.
nurse at least?
No.
Did he say nurse? Can you?
No.
Wow.
No.
That sounds wonderful.
So that was a year, that was a year of that. But, and then I stopped working there when I had my second daughter, and I was on maternity leave when I ran into somebody who was an old friend, the Longs from Mantino, used to be Kim Long.
Yeah.
The office where she worked needed a part-time nurse, and I don't know how we got hooked up, but yeah, I started working there, and I worked there for 6 years, and then I worked for a neurosurgeon for 17 years. And then when he retired, that's how the studio came to be.
And I remember learning about how Little Me Studio came to be. You were actually on a family trip.
Yeah.
Was it a road trip, or were you flying? I can't remember, but it was a family vacation.
Family road trip. We were going to Florida, and my youngest son was maybe a year and a half at the time. And then my oldest daughter was working at a Montessori school, and my youngest daughter was just about ready to graduate from high school. And I don't know, we were just kind of, road trip conversation. So we're all in a car, we're driving to Florida, and we're talking about what's Cassidy going to do, who was my second daughter, what's she going to do when she graduates? And she really loved band and music. And so she was thinking about going into something related to that. And then somehow we were talking about, me wanting to do more things with Kellen, who was my youngest, the one that was a year and a half at the time, and just to spend some one-on-one time with him. Because when I worked for the neurosurgeon, it was not like 9 to 5. It was like all the time. It was, 6:30 in the morning, phone calls. It was, 10 o'clock at night. So it was really a lot of hours and stress. And that went on for a long
17
time.
years, yeah.
And so the downtime, I just thought I need to spend with this youngest child. I had this opportunity. And so it went from having those conversations. What's Cassidy going to do? Brittany's a Montessori teacher. Kellen, I want to spend some time with them. And I think Brittany is the one who was my oldest. I think she said something like, we should start a business. We should, this is what we should do. We should start a business, and we could, this is what we could do. We could incorporate, Cassidy's love of music and, the Montessori, my Montessori background, and, do something for little kids. At the time, there wasn't, like the Exploration Station was there, and we had done classes at King Music, and loved King Music. But I don't remember if at that time, if the Park District had the classes that they have now. I can't recall, but that was like 12 years ago.
Right. I remember there was, I know for Montessori, there was at least 1 or 2 other Montessori schools around at that time.
And that's where she worked. She worked she worked at Kankakee Valley Montessori, and then she worked
And that's the one that closed, right? Or no?
That one, no. Well, I mean, it has since closed, but she worked at Kankakee Valley. That's another story. She worked at Kankakee Valley Montessori, and then my youngest son, so this is the story, my youngest son, I guess he was in the 2-year-old program, left the classroom, like he left the classroom in the middle of the class, left the school, left the parking lot, crossed the street, and was in the apartment complex parking lot.
What?
Across the street.
Oh my God.
And they're like knocking on the door, and a family friend of mine worked there too at the Kankakee Valley Montessori. And she answered the door and they said, "Is that little boy over there in the parking lot yours?" And she's like, "Well, I don't have my glasses on." She goes and get her glasses. She comes back and she's like, "Oh my gosh, that's Kellen." Yes, he's ours.
How in the world did he get out?
This is just the life of Kellen. Like, he's literally,
he's always,
he's the youngest child. He's, he was independent at 2 and he's 11 going on 25 right now, but, yeah. So circle back. So that's how the Orchard Montessori came to be. So that's how Kellen leaving the building was the catalyst for and I can say it now because they're closed and gone. But the catalyst for a lot of their teachers leaving and starting the Orchard Montessori, because we won't get into all of that, but that's how the Orchard Montessori came to be. So it was
okay.
And I'm sitting there like,
oh my gosh, I can only imagine how terrified you must have been when you learned that. So I didn't find out that day. I found out the next day. We're sitting at the dinner table and my son is strapped into his high chair sitting next to me and the phone rings and I answer it because I saw it was, who it was. Yeah, the school, yeah.
And they're like, "This is what happened." And I'm like, and I look over at Kellen and I'm like, what in the, and I know my mouth just probably gaped open and
yeah.
I'm looking and yeah, it was. And then the more I thought about it, the more scared because that school at the time was less than a block away from Route 45.
Yes.
It was January when that happened. I think it was
gosh, it wasn't even.
Yeah, it was like 10 degrees outside that day. So yeah, it was a lot of different things could have happened. None of them did, thankfully, and he was returned safely. But anyway, so yeah.
Gosh. So that obviously kind of fed into the Montessori part at Little Me Studio, but obviously it's really cool to learn that it was like a collective thing between you and your kids and your husband too, because your husband Shannon did a lot of the work, right? Like I guess probably between all of you or even yourself, the like painting the
I
space.
do the painting.
And
he doesn't get credit for that.
Or framing drywall or whatever, things like that.
Yeah, it is a collective, and it still is. 9 years later, the renovations still continue.
Right, we were just talking about that.
But yeah, it is very much every person in my family, from my husband to all 4 of my kids, they've either, worked there or they have attended there. Even my 19-year-old, he came to Lego Club every week and did art classes until he became too cool.
Right. Well, everyone gets to that point, right?
But,
or maybe not. But did you have any type of art background yourself before even coming up with this idea? Like, did you grow up in an art environment?
I mean, yeah. I guess to the extent that my dad he always painted and loved art, but he wasn't a big talker. So it's not like it's something that he really talked about. His love of painting. I didn't really honestly find out some of it until after he had passed.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I did one of those things, I can't remember what it's called, where you pay for a subscription where they send questions to your loved one and then your loved one answers them and submits photos and then to the company and then they make a book about it.
Oh, okay.
Have you ever heard of that?
I
can't remember what it is, but yeah, I read some of that. Yeah, it's interesting to read. Was able, and sad a little bit, like to find out some of that stuff after he's already passed. But so not really an artistic household, so to speak.
But to find that out though, kind of after his passing and considering the business you started, that must have just gave you a full circle feeling, you know, you're just like, wow, like it's really incredible that I started this and I didn't even know that my dad loved painting.
Yeah, I mean, he painted, I guess. I knew that he had painted before I was born, and because there were paintings hanging around the house. But it's not like something that, you know, like my kids know everything. Maybe it's because I talk all the time.
You're in the right place.
But yeah, he wasn't very, he was a man of few words. The words that he used were very important.
Yes.
Nicole Renee Helgeson. Those are the ones where you're like,
you're in trouble. Yes. The full name with the middle name. Yeah.
But yeah.
So you decide this on a road trip to Florida with the family.
Right.
And so when you get back, you just get started.
We just got, I think I came up with the name. I think we may have even come up with a name over maybe on the way back. I can't remember the details of that, but I filed the corporation docs, that fall, and then we opened in the spring.
And you've been in the same strip,
yes,
since the opening, but now you're just in a different location. You're in a much bigger spot than you were before.
Yeah.
So, like for reference, today we're recording this. The original studio is where Matea's Joy is at.
Right.
And now you are just to the north of that.
Right.
In that same strip across from Olivet.
Right. Where Reed's Alterations. So Reed's Alterations was there. And then behind Reed's Alterations, down a hallway was, I think, some kind of business office. And so we were able to take whole,
both of those.
Take that whole back area.
And you do offer Montessori school. Is your daughter Brittany still involved with that? Is she teaching
So no, we do. So we have a preschool transition program. And so she does that along with, so I have two. So all of my employees are very part-time. They're all moms, and I work. And I get this question sometimes, like, why don't you offer classes at this time or that time? And the reason why is because all of my employees are moms. And so being a mom who worked 40 hours a week plus and always, and didn't have enough time to spend with my kids, I feel like it's important to support these women, one of whom is my daughter, with my granddaughters, but also these other women who are my employees and moms. I think it's important to not make them feel stressed about working and needing to be independent and be
flexible.
They want to be a woman with a career or a job or something that they feel passionate about, and they are. But they are also moms. And so if they need time off, and I'm so lucky because, if one of them, I got a text where we have a group chat, and one of them's like, hey, I need this day off I got picked to be on a field trip with my daughter. Can someone cover? And, they're like, yeah, I can pick it up. I literally almost never, knock on wood, I almost never have to do anything with regard to staffing, because they take care of each other. And I do think that it has something to do with the fact that that they tell me they love being there, that it makes them feel good about what they do because they enjoy it. They enjoy being outside the home, but it's just enough. It leaves enough time for them to be moms and to have activities that maybe aren't.
Yeah, there's something about having the freedom to know that it's not a 40-hour a week job and you can come and go almost as you please.
I mean, we have a set schedule, obviously. I have expectations of their schedule,
Right. But it's not like they have to be there every day, 9 to 5.
No,
that
never.
kind of thing. So that's where I talk about freedom, but with some, obviously some stipulations.
Yeah. I mean, Sabrina's our Montessori teacher, Sabrina McGregor. She's amazing. And she has her Montessori certification. She's a mom of 2. She also, loves music. She just started, she loves nature. And I mean, I call her like, when I describe her, I'm like, she's like a hula hoop and rainbows and butterflies. She's just very freewheeling. She just started in a roller derby. She's like, join this roller derby club. This is her.
That means she's tough too, because those roller derby clubs are no joke. Like those are some tough women that join those roller derbies.
Yeah, she's just amazing, and they all are. They all have these amazing qualities. From Sabrina, and Trenna is one of them, and Katie and Brittany is my daughter. Cassidy is my other daughter. Kristen.
Oh, Cassidy works there too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. She's an assistant. So she works, she's the one that has,
Yes.
The brain and spine cancer. And so she's But
she is in remission right now, right?
So it's not remission because it's still there.
Oh, okay.
And it's not going to, it's not operable, and it's not going to go away, but it's
controlled,
considered chronic, I guess, because it's not going to go away. But she is on a medication that keeps it at bay, so that's good. But
that really must bring her so much joy to be able to do what she does then.
Yeah.
I mean, it must really help with her condition, I would imagine.
I think so. She loves it. They all, I'm just very lucky, that they allow me to know them.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing that they aren't good at.
Uh-oh. She's dropping the hammer.
Is they, are the, and I talk about this with them too, and with my friends and with people that I have in, because we have some storage rooms at the studio.
Right. Now you do. You got storage space for all this art stuff.
And it's like stacked that we have like.
I've seen some of those storage spaces. You got a lot of stuff.
Because art supplies, like literally everything can be an art supply. We've talked about that.
Yes.
Like, it's like, oh, that piece of cardboard,
Right.
I have ideas.
Right. Someone sees cardboard and like, oh, that's junk, throw it out. And you see it and you're like, no. That's an art piece there.
Kids will paint on that. They'll paint the heck out of that.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to paint on paper.
No.
They want to paint on an egg carton.
Yeah.
They want to paint on, if it's
things
not
that
paper,
are unusual.
They're like, they want to paint on it.
They're all about it. Yeah.
But they're not great at organization. And I think it's because they're just kind of all laid back. They're really amazing with the children. Every one of them is so good with the children. And they're artistic and, but organization, I'm not letting any cats out of the bag. They know how I feel about it. They know how I feel. I'll tidy up the storage room and, I'll leave. And then, 2 days later, I'm back in the storage room and it looks like, what is that show with Bruce Willis? With where I see dead people. What is that show?
Oh, The Sixth
Sense. It looks like The Sixth Sense. When the lady leaves the kitchen and all the cabinet doors and drawers are closed.
They're all flung open.
Yeah, and then she comes back like 30 seconds later and everything's wide open and on the floor. And I'm just like, that's what it feels like. I have that kind of image. My brain is very image driven, right? And so that's what I see. I'm like, what is happening?
My wife would be able to relate to what you say because I'm the person that does that at our house. I'm not organized like she is. So I will disorganize her organization and then I make her upset.
Yeah.
I don't do it on purpose. I try not to, but it happens.
I'm like, guys, there's a label. I labeled it.
I think Brian can also attest to this too, because we try to do that here at Pathfinder and keep our gear in order. And Brian is he's very meticulous with all of us on that. So
I am, because I'm not that person either. I need that to
Structure.
drive me to stay organized as well. Because I'm the guy that leaves the cabinet door open too, and my wife is like, "What is wrong with you?"
So that's where it comes from. Okay.
They're just so gifted at other things, though. And so it's like, I don't overlook it. Don't get me wrong. I'm like, guys, you're killing me.
No.
No,
yeah.
And I do say that, guys, you're killing me.
Yeah.
Or I'll send like a picture in our group chat that says, with like, a head explosion emoji or something. But
that happens sometimes here. So,
but you can't nobody's, and we talk about this. So this is a good segue. I talk about this with children, right? I say, in our preschool transition program, we meet the children where they are, and we don't have expectations that the children are going to be, we have maximum of 8 kids, right? It's not going to be 8 of the same little kid. It's 8 individual humans with different needs and characteristics and what they're curious about and how they handle excitement. And so I am grateful for the amazing qualities that my employees have. And I meet them where they are when it comes to the things that they're not as great at.
Yeah.
Because none of us are great at everything. It's just, and we accept that from adults, but strangely, we collectively as a society want our kids to be good at everything. And so it's confusing to me why there's these expectations of good grades across the board in school, when I'm not great at everything, but we have expectations that kids are going to be great at everything. That's always confounded me and been part of the reason why. It's an art studio, but for me, it's more than that. And we talked about that too,
yes.
Right? It's less about the art and more about what the art can facilitate between the children, friendships, a feeling of connection, a feeling that you belong somewhere, connecting with your adult, if it's a parent-child class, taking time to, screen-free zone, put your phone down, and, get messy, make a core memory,
Well, and that kind of, I wanted to make sure we get this in there too. Not everyone knows what a Montessori school is. We've all heard it a billion times on, so-and-so, or I went to Montessori school when I was a kid or whatever. But what is a Montessori class or a Montessori school? What is the difference?
I think, and I'm really bad at memorizing because I'm, not a Montessori teacher, but it's more about allowing the children to flourish in where their curiosity brings them, right? I think the basic premise of it. And then also, so it's about practical life skills. But then they're not sitting in desks, right? So we've got a couple of tables, but all these activities, they're called jobs. They're all set up on trays, and the children can independently go and pull an activity and interact with it. It's self-correcting, generally speaking. The things that, whatever it is that they're doing is self-correcting, and so they can do it independently. Sabrina and Brittany are both certified Montessori instructors.
Right.
Our Montessori program is different from our preschool transition program, which is what Brittany does. But it's all, I guess, really just about allowing the children to be individuals, and also allowing the families to be the decision makers in a lot of instances when it comes to, let's say, so preschool, let's talk preschool transition. So I think preschool transition we didn't start off doing that right away. It came from a place of me when I would drop my kids off at school, like the very first day, I bring them to the school, and then I am sobbing all the way out to the car.
Or the kids sobbing, or both of you are sobbing.
Right. I mean, mine did not sob. They were all like, "Oh, peace,"
I have vivid memories of my mom dropping me off at preschool and literally running out of the classroom, running out of the main door and running after my mother. So,
yeah, and we have those. And so it came from a place of me. And then I went out to, this is with the youngest one. I went out to my car and I sat in my car in the parking lot and cried for 5 minutes, and he was fine. Kellen was like, he he ran. But it still came from that place of me as a parent. I didn't know some of the instructors, I didn't know, the instructors that I was dropping him off with. I think he had a speech delay. And so I'm thinking, how is he going to tell people what he needs? Are they going to be nice to him? Are they going to make sure other people are nice to him? The other kids are nice to them or to him. And so in that moment, I was thinking there's got to be a better way to go through this process of separating, from the home environment and that connection with your primary caregiver into an educational environment, right? And we're not a preschool, and I don't pretend that we are.
This is preschool.
It's like preschool because we're working on socialization skills, we're working on school readiness skills, but we're doing it through play-based.
Yes. Well, the socialization part is huge. That is the biggest part, because speaking from, with my son's experience with that was the piece that was really hard for him. But now he's fine. He's in first grade. He's excelling. But it took a lot of effort to get there. Preschool was hard. And it would have been helpful to have the preschool.
Preschool. It's like checking the boxes of doing the things that, because it's 8 kids, and preschool transitions 2 adults. So we've got an instructor and an assistant. And so there's eyeballs on all the time because they're practicing. The children are practicing, right? They're, if they see a toy and they want to play with it, they take it. Doesn't matter if, Joe is playing with it. If Sally wants it, she's going to take it, right?
Yep.
She doesn't have that concept if she's come from a home where there aren't any other children, or she's not, played on a consistent basis with other kids. And so we're able to say in the moment, no thanks. We can't take the toy from our friend. Look how our friend feels when we take the toy. So that's not okay. But here's what we can do instead. Instead of that toy, which I know that you want, we can play with this toy until our friend is done with it. And it gives the kids the opportunity. I call it situational corrections. I don't know if that's a term, but
probably is. I mean, it sounds official.
It's how the kids learn best, right? If we sit them down and we talk to them about sharing, they're going to be like, okay, and they're not going to get any of it.
No.
But, or if we do it in the moment and then we give them the tool to, of what they can do instead, because they want the toy. They don't understand why they can't have it. They don't know how to get rid of that feeling of wanting it. So it's about all of those things, but it happens in the moment. And we can do that because the ratios are so small. And to me, it feels like we're making a difference for the kids because they then have the voice. We teach them how to use their voice instead of throwing themselves down if they're upset about something. People call it, a temper tantrum, but what is that? It's they don't know how to verbalize their feelings. And so that's how it comes out, right? And so we had this little boy, we called him the prize. Did I tell you about this?
It doesn't sound familiar.
So there's this little boy, we used to call him the prize because we didn't want to call him out, right? But he was the little boy. He was the little boy that when he didn't get his way in anything, he would just throw himself straight backwards onto his back. And it's worried me because I don't want him to hit his head, 7 times in 2 hours.
Oh
and so we would say, do you have your eyes on the prize? Okay. Because we would get ready to do something that he wasn't going to love. Right. And so we would say something like that. Can you go stand over there by the prize?
Oh my gosh.
Because we didn't want to say his name because we didn't want him to feel singled out.
Yeah.
Ever. Because that doesn't help.
Nope.
That's a whole nother conversation.
This brings back memories of when my son was at that age and phase because he went through that thing where it was always like you had to be very careful how you transitioned into all the different things, even if it was just from, hey, we're watching TV and now we're going to eat dinner. Like even that you have to you got to prep him for that. You got to give him plenty of warnings.
And that's part of what it is too, is it's this, I feel like it's easier for us to do because we're such a small group, right? With the 8 kids and the two adults, the instructor and the assistant, that it's easy for us to focus on the children and meet their needs what each individual child needs, right? I just love the program so much. I feel like it just allows them to practice all of these things, learn to use their voice. And if someone takes something from them, we can talk to them about how they can handle that situation. Somebody takes something from you, you can say, no, thank you. I was playing with that. And if they don't give it back, then what do? You go to your Miss Brittany, I was playing with that toy. So to be able to use your voice instead of throwing yourself backwards, and acknowledging their feelings. Like if they throw themselves backwards, it's not like calm down because, calm down isn't helpful.
They're like, okay, calm down. Oh, that does not help me. And they don't even know what that means sometimes, or a lot of times. So. And,
so how we don't say calm down, we can say, I understand you're frustrated. So we're naming the feeling, right? And then here's what we can do instead. And to talk them through that coping skills, right?
Oh, that's huge. Yeah.
And then, transitioning, it's a set routine. And so they get to feel comfort in knowing what comes next. I just love it. And I feel like then when they move on to the next program away from us, they're only meant to be with us for a short period of time. So then when they move on, that they get to be in a place where they've checked all the boxes of learning to share, learning to not poke our neighbor, all of those things, learning to transition in between activities, how to clean up after themselves, how to have snack. When we have snack, we have a practice. We have snack time. But
you
snack,
practice
you practice snacks. But for them, it's not anything but snack. But for us, it's how do we open up our napkin? We stay seated, have our snack. How do we ask for more? We're not running around with our snack. We're not taking our neighbor's snack. We're not poking our neighbor. We're not throwing our snack. What to do when we're done? All of those things. They get to check off all those boxes.
Yeah. So Little Me Studio, obviously, those are Montessori school, and the transition into preschool class. Those are some of the big things you do, but you actually offer quite a bit. There's even you got the big kids art class. That's for ages. Is it 5 or 6?
Yeah, 5 to 6. 5.
It starts at 5 or 6 and goes all the way up to 12. I think
12ish. Yeah. I mean,
So you got that. Do you still offer like the different sensory bins and things like that?
We do, yeah.
Yeah. You can walk in the front entrance of the studio there, and you can see those things that you can buy and bring home. So, and then what else would you like to mention or point out?
Just that I think when I think I've already said that there are classes, the other things that we offer, the big kids art, toddler and preschool art, we have baby art and sensory, but it's, for me, from my perspective, it's more about those are the facilitators for the other things. And so those are the things that we have. And then we have, birthday parties, but they're art focused too, with an art activity. And it's, I don't know, it makes me happy. The studio makes me happy.
Yeah. Well, I can tell.
Doesn't make me money, but it makes me happy.
Yeah, and that's what's important, And you do have, I think it's starting up this summer, right? Is your mobile vehicle or mobile? What is the official name of that? Is that starting this summer or not? I can't remember.
I mean, because somebody said to me, because they're like, "Is that your horse trailer behind the studio?" And I'm like, "It is."
What are you doing with the horse trailer?
Yeah. And I'm like, "Well, we're going to have a mobile art studio." And they're like, "Why would you do something like that? Why would you do something like that? You're just finishing up the renovations of the studio." And I'm like,
you constantly need something to do.
I don't know. It is, I am one of those people, like I watch TV, but while I'm watching TV, I'm doing something else because I feel like I need to. I don't know why. I guess I haven't really delved into
the mobile art studio thing is so cool, though, because you can bring it to where people are, and then you can also be outside in nature, too, right?
I mean, that's kind of, for me, the biggest aspect of it is that I love that we can maybe try and bring more nature art using found materials. Would be the ideal situation for me. Like, we go through a lot of material, despite the fact that we, use a lot of upcycled items. We go through a lot of material. And that's something that weighs on me sometimes if I think too much about it, just the waste. Not the waste, but like the using of the purchased materials and how we're contributing the environmental changes that I know, one person and one studio, but it's still something that I think about. And so I think when I think about the mobile art studio, for me, it's about being able to, use more found materials, nature-based, like do things with things like you can go on a nature walk and then come back and create something with the things that you find. It reminds me of like when I was a little girl and my best friend's mom. So I lived on the lake in Manteno, right?
That's right.
And my best friend's grandma actually had a place kind of down the road on this private road that was on a different lake. And there was all this
Waldron?
It's the lake that the Sportsman's Club is on.
Well, that's Lake Manteno, but then there's Waldron is connected to it. That's like the smaller.
Oh, so
lake.
That's the house that I grew up in.
Oh,
was on the Little Lake. I don't know. I just called it the Little Lake.
Okay. Sorry, I got confused there.
Yeah, the Little.
So you were on the Little Lake. Okay.
I was on the Little Lake.
Okay.
My best friend her grandma lived on the Big Lake.
Okay.
And there was like this woodsy area adjacent to, where her grandma lived. And we would go in there and make fairy houses and build forts. And I think that may be where some of the creativity, I guess now thinking back, maybe came from. Just like, I'm older than you. We talked about this.
Yeah.
But they didn't have, you couldn't go into the store and buy couldn't order from Amazon. You couldn't buy a Barbie chair, for instance. Right? If you wanted a Barbie chair,
you had to make one.
You made a Barbie chair out of a Kleenex box, after emptying all the Kleenex out and setting it on the table. And
annoying your parents.
So I mean, that I guess could be part of it.
Yeah.
But so I love that aspect of it, of hearing water and birds and,
And so is the mobile art studio, do you have any dates or anything like that places you're going to be yet? Or is that still kind of like a to be announced? Still to be announced.
Okay. It's sitting back there.
Yeah.
It's calling my name.
Right.
My husband is like done with renovating anything. But luckily, it's mostly, ready to roll, so to speak.
Okay.
I just have to. I do, Miss Trenna, one of my girls, is super stoked and about getting out there and doing all these things. So,
Well, hopefully someone hears
coming
this.
to a park near you.
Yeah, hopefully someone hears this and they're equally as excited and maybe they want to be a part of it or they want you to stop at their event or whatever, whatever it is.
I thought you meant they were going to come help me renovate it.
That's what I mean.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
From, maybe they're like, oh, I really want to be involved in that. I would love to, help
renovate
out.
your horse trailer.
Yeah. Anything in between. Hopefully someone hears this and they want to be a part of it. So, because that sounds really cool.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
I mean, at some point I need to chill.
No, that's life though. Life is a continuation. It doesn't stop.
Well, I don't see that, but I'm still working. So I'm working for the doctor again.
Right. You're still.
And so the doctor that I worked for 17 years, I'm working for again. And so downtime would be lovely. Like one of my girls takes the summer off, she and I respect the heck out of that. I feel like when she said, I want to do this, it's Sabrina actually, when we were kind of coming up with doing the Montessori program and she really wanted to do it at the studio. She's like, but I have one thing, like I don't want to do anything in the summer. And I'm like, done. Check. We can make that happen, because I love that she prioritizes her family and her time with her family. And, also feels that what she does at the studio is important. She just has they all do. I keep saying Sabrina's name, but, Katie does too. And Trent, oh my gosh, she's got 4 boys and she's an art teacher at one of the local schools. Okay. And she still has time to give to me, to work at the studio. And I'm just really lucky when it comes to all of these humans who allow me to be in their lives in this way.
Yeah, it's just great to hear it's such a collaborative effort,
It is very people say that all the time. It's very much like a family atmosphere, but really is, it just feels good. And I'm thankful for that because I have worked at places where I was like,
yeah, we've all been there.
I don't want to go to work today.
Right.
And they tell me at least that that's not how they feel. They feel like they like to get up and go to work. And I think it shows in the work that they do,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it definitely shows in your work at Little Me Studio. So thank you for all you do.
Oh my gosh, and thank you.
All the staff at Little Me Studio in Bourbonnais. Thank you, Brian. And so if anyone's interested, you can go to littlemestudio.com. They can even sign up for classes there if they want to just try it out. You have open studio sessions where people can just come and just check it out. And then from there, maybe you're like, maybe I will sign up for a class or something, you know? Yeah. There's a lot of options there. So
it's a lot going on.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on about
Right. And the birthday parties too. You know, if you're sick of the usual birthday party places and maybe you want it to be a little more, you know, kind of, I don't know if relaxed is the right word, but, you know.
I think, you know, I went to a birthday party a couple weeks ago at Hero City.
Yes.
And
I have had a couple of birthday parties there for my son.
And so Kellen, my son, was invited to one, and he had a blast, you know, but it's loud and it's, you know, him running around and then I feel like there's a place for having, you know, a birthday party at the studio where it's, you know, quiet and,
yes.
and the kids have fun. I don't mean that, but there's not a lot of the music is quiet and
there's not a crazy there's not a bunch of different activities going on to where it's like you're not going to a carnival.
It's a singular.
You're gonna do this thing together.
Yeah.
Instead of look at these 5 or 6 or however many different things we can do, and everyone just kind of spreads out and goes and does their own thing. This is more of a focused group effort, you know. So
it's fun.
Yeah.
It's all, again, art bringing people together, art facilitating, you know, this group friendship activity. And yeah, I love it.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Nikki, for coming by.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Yeah, I hope you had fun. I had a blast.
I did.
I don't know if there's anything else you feel like you need to express or get out about Little Me Studio, or even about yourself.
The biggest thing that I hear about the studio is that I would say this, that so many people say to me, "Oh, Little Me Studio, I've heard of that place, but I have no idea what you do." I hear that from a lot of people. And to that, I say, you know, that this is what we do. We have art classes for children age 9 months to 12 years, process art classes, parent-child classes, and birthday parties, our preschool transition program, and our Montessori program. This is what we do. We're not a preschool and we're not a daycare, which is what we get a lot. But I think we're a place where families can come together and find a way to connect with their child. And like I said, a place where kids can come and find their people. You know, I think especially for kids like 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, those kids, maybe if they aren't into sports, people need to find their crew, their group, place where they feel like, hey,
they belong.
They're like me. And then, you know, I love that. It makes my heart feel happy to see them find each other. Friendships, you know, makes me happy. Anyway.
Well said.
Thank you, Jake.
You're very welcome, Nikki. Thank you.
It was okay. Like I was so nervous.
Yay! No, thank you so much for coming by and being such a big supporter of Kankakee Podcast as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. That concludes this episode of Kankakee Podcast. I'm Jake LaMore. Thank you so much for listening. Please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Kankakee Podcast. Shout out to Carrie O'Connell for supporting the show each month through Patreon. If you want your name announced on a future episode, sign up at patreon.com/Kankakee Podcast. Special thanks to our sponsors, Chicago Dough Company, Noble Dairy Queen Stores, Frank's Appliance Center and Sleep Source, Pigosh Engineering, King Music, Little Me Studio, Taco John's, D. Westfall Jewelers, and Edward Jones Financial Advisor, Adam Elroy. Kankakee Podcast is produced by the fine team at Pathfinder, a full-service marketing agency in downtown Kankakee. Learn more at yourpathfinder.io. Our theme song is by Lupe Carroll.